The EPA came down to Andy after he had done what he thought was right in the state of Wyoming, got all the proper permits. I'm not going to tell you a story because he's better at that than I am. Government claims that he now owes them something, I think, in excess of $16 million in fines and penalties. Andy says, I don't think so. Andy, if you stand up, please, come forward. Big hand for Andy.
Well, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Andy Johnson. I'm from the southwest corner of Wyoming in a tiny little town called Fort Bridger. We got about 385 people live there. And just to give you a little bit of background on me and our family, kind of what we do is my dad has worked as a machinist for about 25 years right next to the plant that I work at. I work for the United Steelworkers, local 15320, as a welder. And my wife, my beautiful wife back there, she is in charge of the household and the 4 kids that we have, and she works pretty hard to raise them. Well, kind of our story is we started looking around for property about 10 years ago. We just got married, and we found a little chunk of property. It's about 10 acres, and right there in Fort Bridger. And I'll never forget the day that we saw it. I just looked at that property and I thought, this is our place. This is our home. It was a good price. It was in a perfect place. It was everything we wanted. It had a little stream going right down through the middle of it. And so we bought it, and we built a house on it, and we worked really hard, and we built the road, we built the house, we built the fence, the mailbox, the flagpole. I mean, you name it. We worked really hard for this place, and we put our name on it. And we started to inquire about building a stock pond, because we have horses and cows. At the time, we had about 10 steers and about 4 horses. And we just wanted to make a place, for our livestock to drink, and, a place for our kids to enjoy, our grandkids to enjoy, just something to be proud of, to improve our property. And so I called the Wyoming state engineer right there in Lyman, and he came out and told us that, no problem at all. He fills out hundreds of these permits a year, and that we were going to be able to build a stock pond. And he was actually really excited about it. So he engineered it. He helped fill out the permit. He surveyed it, and it was a huge process. It was about 5 years of doing the homework, of gathering the materials, of talking with all the neighbors, talking with the water district. We wanted to make sure that this project was right. And so when we got our state engineer stock pond permit back, which I have right here, it's signed off by the state of Wyoming. As a stock pond, the permit number is 19468. If anybody wants to look it up, it's online, it's public record. So when we went into this project, we felt very, very confident that we were doing the right thing. And we were very responsible while we did it. Kind of a rough overview of how I built the pond was, there's a little channel on the bottom of our property. There's about a 7-foot incline or decline. So what we did is we put a 24-inch pipe in the bottom of this creek, and then as we built it up with the earth material that was in the creek, we basically dug it out, we compacted it, built it up. The entire time the stream flowed freely. And so when it was all done, we rip-wrapped it, we used a really nice pond liner. We hauled in about 20 truckloads of big cobble rock. And we did all this work ourselves. So when we were done, we were very, very proud of this project, and it's beautiful. I mean, you can look it up online. It's probably the most public pond on the face of the earth. We watched the fish, and we never did stock it, but the fish went from about 6-8 inches to 2-3 pounds, to now we're catching 6 and 7 pound brown trout in this thing. I mean, it's incredible. We have world-class brook trout. The biggest one we caught is about 3.5 pounds. But our horses and our cows love it, our neighbors love it, the community likes it. It's something that we're very proud of. And about the time that I was done, we started receiving phone calls from the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA eventually. The Army Corps of Engineers sent out a couple college interns, and they said, well, you might be in violation, you might not be. And I explained to them I have all the documentation that shows, the state of Wyoming is behind us 100%. Also, when we were done with the project, we have a letter from the state engineer's office out of Cheyenne, and it says right here, all of the legal requirements of the state engineer's office that were your responsibility have been satisfied for the Johnson Stock Pond Reservoir, permit number 1946-8S. Said permit is in good standing and is entitled to be exercised exactly as permitted. So we're thinking that we're in good shape, no problem. Well, the Army Corps sends out these 2 kids, and to tell you the truth, I was a kid, still am kind of, I guess. But they stumbled over their tape measures. They came out on our property. They looked at this, looked at that, and they said, well, we don't know if you're in violation or not. And I said, well, okay, well, what's the next step? And they didn't really give me an answer, but I made it clear to them that if there was a problem, that we would do everything we could to work with them to correct it, and that we had no idea of any federal permit, nor did the state. I mean, my local, state engineer's office had no idea that we needed a federal permit, a 404 permit. So they eventually just turned it over to the EPA. Well, a long time went by, and we didn't hear anything. And then I came home from work, and my wife said, we got a packet in the mail, and it's not good. So I came home to this, and it's an administrative order, and I opened it up, and I was just in shock. I mean, my jaw hit the ground when I started to read this. It said, now this is in February. I mean, our pond is completely frozen. It said, within 10 days that I was ordered to submit a plan, a revised plan, hire a consultant to completely rip out my pond and put it back to original specs, or else face $37,500 per day of fine that I'm out of compliance. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's physically impossible, number one. Number two, I wasn't going to do that at all. I mean, that's not even a question. I knew that I wasn't going to do that. So it turns out what they did, and I guess to back up a few steps, I forgot to mention a gentleman named, not gentleman, but a guy that works for EPA. His name is Richard Clark. He's out of Region 8, out of Denver. He came out to our house, and we said it was fine. We said, come out, we'll talk to you, we'll work this out. Well, he comes into our house, and he comes in and he slaps down his notebook, and he says, well, this is very serious. And I said, okay. He goes, well, we don't know if you're in violation or if you're not, but you're going to need to prove to us that you're not, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. And I said, you can leave right now. I mean, and he got in his car and left. We didn't hear anything for a long time, and then we got the order. Well, I just got thinking, what kind of country do we live in where I have to prove that I'm innocent of something that my state doesn't even know what this is?
It's un-American.
So we knew it was wrong. We knew we were going to fight it. We just didn't know how. And then once the ball started rolling, we called all the senators. We let them know what was going on. They kind of took it from there. They went out. There was a press release in Washington. And then once it hit Fox News, and then it just went viral. We had tons of support. We had calls coming in like crazy. We had other people. And come to find out, there's a lot of other people out there that are going through the same kind of thing. And you know, it was a tremendous relief to have people come forward, which I'd like to mention some people that have helped us. One of the very first people that called me was Ray Cagle out of Idaho. He lives in Rigby. I just saw him the other day. He is a wetlands scientist. He used to work for the Army Corps of Engineers, specifically in the 404 enforcement department. So he came down immediately 2 weeks later after this happened. And he studied our property. He took a lot of pictures, measured everything. He came back just shaking his head, and I said, Ray, I don't want you to sugarcoat it. Tell me what we're dealing with here. And he said, well, number one, they have no business being on your property.
All right.
Number two, you fall under many after-the-fact permits. Number three, there is absolutely no jurisdiction here because your water doesn't even go into the alleged navigable water. I'm over 100 miles from this, the so-called navigable water. Well, my water, I mean, to give you a perspective, the stream is about this wide and about that deep. And they're saying that this is a navigable water of the United States. And I'm thinking, I don't have a degree in this, but you couldn't navigate that in a child's inner tube. I mean, there's no way. I just can't see what they were talking about. So, and further, you know, he gave me a report that he did. So there's three major reasons why they have no business being there. So basically, I had to go out and hire a consultant, Ray, to do the EPA's job. And it's cost us thousands of dollars, you know, sleepless nights. You know, this wasn't easy to deal with, especially at first. It's a lot better now. But so what Ray is saying is the distance from the navigable water, which is the Green River, just the distance alone, he said the Rapanos case that went to the Supreme Court said that you have to have a significant nexus, not just a nexus, but a significant nexus to the navigable water. And you have to prove that it's affected that water chemically, physically, and biologically. And Ray he just kept shaking his head and just kind of laughing. He said, I could do a dye test here. I could prove that this water, not one drop of it ever even reaches that navigable water. Secondly, the after-the-fact permit, we fall under specifically number 18. There's a few more that we're really, really close to, but 18 allows you to put up to 25 cubic yards of fill material into any navigable water, and that's a pre-existing after-the-fact permit. The only difference between 10 cubic yards and 25 cubic yards is you have to have prior permission. So he measured ours. We're at 8 cubic yards. Now, when the EPA, when they talk about pollutants, you know, as a normal person would think, I think of chemicals, you know, toxins, kind of like the Animas River that they're responsible for here recently. That's what I think of. What they're saying, that they're accusing me of pollutants as far as river rock, gravel. Now this is the same rock that came from the stream, you know, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They're saying earth material. Now we basically took a scoop of dirt here and we compacted it over here. That's what we've done. There's absolutely nothing in that channel that wasn't there before. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So we took it a step further and we tested our water, and it's actually 3 times cleaner coming out than it is coming in. So it's basically a big filter, and not even counting, you know, the fish habitat, the wetlands that are there that were not there before. You know, we have eagles, we have osprey, we have blue heron, we have ducks, geese. I mean, you name it, comes in and uses this thing. It's a tremendous environmental benefit, but the EPA never even asked about that. They don't care. They don't. I kept trying to tell them. I mean, look at these fish. Look at this thing. It's thriving. They don't care. So it told me right there that this wasn't about my pond. I mean, this was about something much bigger than that. Well, come to find out, they were in the process of working toward the new Waters of the U.S. rule. So I thought, and I discussed it with the army of attorneys that I have, and they thought the same thing, that they're trying to use this as a case, a precedent-setting case that's going to control basically all the water. I mean, if you think about it in bigger terms of, you know, if I'm in violation of a little bitty stock pond in the middle of Wyoming where there's 385 people, you know, what isn't in violation? I mean, our water is crystal clear. It's actually 41 times cleaner than the alleged affected navigable water, the Green River. You know, and we have all this documentation. We've submitted it to EPA numerous times. We've had, this is the third report that we've submitted to them to try to reason with these people. And all they do is they just put their nose up in the air, and you know, they'll tell Fox News, well, you know, we've tried for months to work this out with Mr. Johnson, and their idea of working it out is being completely submissive and doing exactly what they want. And you know, it's just incredible that an agency, you know, it makes me mad, really, to think that, you know, I live in a country, I pay taxes, we work really hard, and all we want to do is have a piece of property and basically just be left alone. I mean, we want to just raise our kids, just leave us alone. You know, we want to, yeah, absolutely. And so I thought, you know, when this hit, I guess I had two choices. And I thought, you know, if you can't even have a piece of property and do what you want with it, then what, you know, it's just not even worth having. If you can't do what you want. I mean, it's within the realm of reason, you know, and I felt like we were really responsible the entire time. And these people are just absolutely, they're just out of control. And you know, come to find out these other cases that I've learned about, and I've got to know these people personally. One of them I want to mention is Mike and Chantel Sackett out of northern Idaho. They did nothing but put in a road, and there wasn't one drop of water on their property whatsoever. Well, they put in a road, they're getting ready to build a house, and the EPA comes in and gives them the same order, and gives them a stop and desist order, and says you're in violation, you're filling wetlands. They said, "What? Where's the water? Does it have to be wet?" Well, that doesn't matter to the EPA, because their house was on the National Wetlands Inventory map, and somebody sitting in some office, just like the guy that sent me this, that has no idea what Wyoming is about, or where the water goes, or what the needs of the people are. You know, so they've been fighting that. Luckily, they went to the Supreme Court and they won. Funny enough, Ray Cagle, the expert that's been working with me, testified on their behalf, and the jury ended up going with that. They beat that, and that's the only reason that I have the right to a judicial review. I think it was 3 or 4 years later that I got this. But before that happened, you know, anybody that gets one of these, they would have had no other choice but to do exactly what the EPA wanted, and then somehow, some way, try to come back around and sue them after the fact. But then it would be too late. I mean, your project would be gone, your funds would be gone, you'd be destroyed. So I'm very thankful for the Sacketts and for Ray Cagle that they beat that case. That was really great. Another case that I wanted to talk about was over by Cheyenne. It's Harriet Hageman and Dave Hamilton.
Right.
Yeah, that was a fantastic case, and it's funny that I have a very good friend of mine that sat on the jury, and I wasn't supposed to say that until after the case, but he told me every detail of that case, and he said what happened with that was Mr. Hamilton is a very wealthy guy. He's got a lot of ground, and he had an irrigation canal that was just a meandering canal, and it had junk cars in it, had old refrigerators, stoves. You know, you can imagine what it was like. Well, he took that meandering irrigation canal and he straightened it out. And he lined it with cement. He spent a fortune. He did a really nice job, and it looks really good. Well, the EPA came in, same thing. They said, you need a 404 permit. He said, no, I don't. So he spent over $1 million of his own money. Luckily, he found Harriet, which is a phenomenal attorney. And they beat that. They won. And so that was a jury trial. And then the EPA even went a step further and tried to appeal it after they just lost to a jury trial. And the judge said, no, that's the way it's going to sit. So Wyoming is very non-tolerant of this kind of stuff. I think the EPA is trying to come in here and set a precedence. There was a video on YouTube about, I think it's been 3 or 4 years ago. There was an EPA agent, and he said on camera, he said, the way that we counsel our people to manage is to do it just like the Romans did. We want them to go into these small villages, and we want them to crucify 2 or 3 or 4 people, so that from then on out, these villages are easier to manage. Well, that guy got fired, and you know, I guess what I'm saying is, unless people stand up and fight it, they're gonna do what they want. I mean, they're gonna control every aspect of our life, not just water, but everything. And you know, the water thing is scary because they don't make any more water. And you know, the way that they're trying to regulate with this new waters of the U.S., they basically want every drop of water to be under their jurisdiction. And the more that I learn about the water and the way that our government works, and talking with Ray and some of these other people that have dealt with this their whole life, you know, I asked a few people, I said, why did they come after me? Because obviously I don't have that kind of money. Right? I mean, my fines are $16+ million right now today. And it makes me laugh too. But even if I had it, they wouldn't get it. But these people that know this agency and have a lot more experience than I do, they said that this is all about money. And what they do is they take all these little bitty petty cases like mine, and they go back to Washington, and some bureaucrat that's sitting in some office that's never even seen Wyoming or Montana or Idaho, they say, well, good job. You know, go out there and save the birds and the bees, and you're doing a great job. Here's another 80 million or whatever. So they go back and they hire more EPA agents. They expand. There's more and more and more all the time, and it's just a bunch of nonsense. You know, we don't need any more regulation. In my opinion, I think that the state of Wyoming, the state of Montana, the state of, you know, I think the state can regulate its own needs, its own water, land, its issues on the ground, because they're the ones that, they know the people, they know the needs, they know the industry. The EPA has no clue what is actually going on. And I had the pleasure of, I say that sarcastically, but I had the pleasure of sitting down at the table with the EPA and having a closed door meeting, and this was last year. And we thought, we were being optimistic, we thought that they wanted to resolve this, that, you know, it could be positive. So we went into this meeting, you know, fully loaded. We had 3 attorneys that have a phenomenal track record, 2 of them with beating the EPA. And we sat down across the table. When I walked into the meeting, they were all handshakes. There was 3 ladies. They said, "Oh, such a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Johnson. Such a pleasure. It's been so..." And that just about made me sick. I just thought, you know, you guys have attacked me and my family and my home and the future of my kids and my wife, and then you want to shake my hand and be nice. Well, we sat down at the table, and the first words out of their mouth was, "None of this is to be used in court." And I thought, well, aren't you slimy? I mean, so I guess I can't elaborate too much on the details, but they basically said, here's a really, really good deal. You know, we're going to let you keep the pond. We're going to, you know, give you the, you know, maybe look at this after the fact permit. We're going to do everything in the world so that you don't sue us. But we're gonna be in charge, still. And at first it sounded good, that just to get them away from us, but then I thought, you know what, that's not getting them away from us. That all that's doing is temporarily having some relief. And after we talked about it with our attorneys and everybody, we said absolutely not. And then further, months later, when they claimed that they were working with us, they would never put anything in writing. Everything that was at this meeting that they talked about, they would never commit to it in writing. So we didn't know what to think. We thought, they're trying to push us into something that they're trying to gain jurisdiction over us is what they were doing. They knew that they didn't have it. They know that they don't have a case, because if they had a case, they would have sued me 2 years ago, and they wouldn't have been nice. So we knew where we were standing, and so that's where Pacific Legal comes in. Is we had talked to Pacific Legal, we had talked to Mountain States Legal Foundation out of Colorado also, and all these other attorneys. Well, Pacific gets a hold of us and they said, we want to do something about it. So I signed with them, and within 30 days, they said, yeah, check your email. We got some plans, and by the way, be in Cheyenne on this date. I said, oh yeah, for what? Well, we're suing them, so. I said, okay, that sounds good. So we did, and Pacific Legal's been fantastic, and also Mountain States has been outstanding. So we met in Cheyenne, and right there at the Capitol, had a press release. We filed suit, and kind of the nature of our lawsuit is we're just asking the judge for relief. We're not asking for millions of dollars. We're not asking for anything, really, other than just leave us alone, get out of our life. You do not have jurisdiction, and this is why. Jonathan Wood is the attorney, the head attorney on this case, and he is pushing real hard just the stock pond exemption. Nationwide, they're trying to do away with the stock pond exemption, because basically, if they can get every little farmer and rancher to have to submit a 404 permit, it's not only going to be huge money-wise, but it's going to give them power over, everything. It's huge. They don't like the stock pond exemption, of course, because they're missing out on the money and the power and the jurisdiction and all that. So last year, it was last August, the John Stossel Show called us, and they said, we want you to go out to New York and want to tell your story on our show. And I said, well, sure, yeah, let's do it. So as I was flying over from Salt Lake City to New York, I'm looking down, and there are literally just tens of thousands of little farms and a pond and a field. And I thought, man, this is a lot bigger deal than my pond. It really has nothing to do with me or my pond. It's the point. It's the law, and we have to stand up at some point, because they're going to run right over us. We're just barely finding this out in Wyoming. And we deal a lot with it with the coal, being the lead producer of coal, oil and gas. I guess Wyoming is just a state that's kind of used to doing what they need to do and what they want to do. And I think the EPA has got us in their sights. So, yeah, we knew it was important from the beginning, and so we told our story on the John Stossel Show, and that went really good. He's a big supporter of ours. And since then, we've been back on Fox News, and we've just here recently we had the New York Times at our house a while back. That was pretty interesting. They came over for dinner, and we made them dinner, and they took a bunch of pictures. We went down by the pond and caught a couple really nice fish. And I just wanted to show them. I said, I want to show you what a detriment this is to the environment, and how horrible this is. And he looked down into the crystal clear water, and we pulled out about a 3-pound world-class brook trout. And he just shook his head laughing, he goes, I just can't believe this. And then it was, I think, 2 weeks prior to that the EPA is responsible for dumping 1 million gallons of toxic waste into the Animas River. But the double standard is incredible, and what happens to the EPA when they do something like that? Nothing. And what happens, can you imagine if I dumped a gallon of anything in any river, they would crucify me or you, or, and that's what's, I think, wrong with the system is nobody holds them accountable, and they have unlimited funds. They're growing all the time. They have more and more people all the time, and they just hurt people. They go out and the part that makes me the most mad is, this is a family. This isn't an inanimate object. This isn't a law. This is a family. And when they came into our lives, I guess we were very naive. We didn't know that was even possible. And when they threaten you and your kids and your wife and your future and everything you've ever worked for, and possibly even prison. I mean, there was a time there where I didn't know if I was going to go to prison. It's horrible, and that's what they don't care about. They don't care who you are. They don't care where you live. They don't care if you're 90 or if you're 20 years old or if you have 10 kids or no kids or nothing. They do not care. And that's been the hard part about it is we live in this country, and we pay an awful lot of taxes. We abide by all the laws. My dad's worked very hard. His dad's worked very hard. We've done nothing wrong, and we didn't want to hurt anybody or anything by this stock pond. And you can look it up. Like I said, you can look it up on the internet, and it's beautiful. I mean, we're proud of it, and but it's pretty awesome that we have the ability to fight it. And without the Sacketts, I would have had no choice but to just cave and just rip it out and do what they wanted and pay all their fines. It's kind of funny, last week at work after the New York Times article came out, and it says the $16 million, my boss walks by and he goes, I guess you need some more overtime, huh? but I don't know why we got put in this position exactly, but I just know that we got to fight it, and hopefully we're going to get this behind us. I think that judge is going to make a good ruling. We're people of faith. We think that this is going to come out fine, and then hopefully maybe next year, the year after, we'll be helping build some more ponds. But that's kind of our story. That's what's happened to us, and I just want to be able to help anybody else that's going through something similar. We have all the contacts on the back of this paper that I passed around. My attorney out of Cheyenne is Dan Frank. He's been really good. He's teamed up as local counsel with attorney Karen Bud-Fallon, and they're both out of Cheyenne. They're really, really good. Karen's really, really great too. Pacific Legal Foundation has just been awesome. You can get a hold of them at that number. Jonathan Wood is my attorney that's worked with me, but they take on all kinds of cases. I looked at their website the other day. He's working on the deal that's going with the prairie dog in Utah, and orchards and all kinds of private property rights. And they're a really, really great foundation, and they've taken it on for free. So at this time, we're not at this point we're not paying nearly what we've been paying before. So that's really been great. Harriet, I don't have her listed on here because I couldn't get her information, but Harriet Hageman out of Cheyenne is really, really good now. She's working on another case. She's pretty busy, but she's really good. Mountain States Legal Foundation, William Penley, he's been phenomenal. And then Ray and Susan Cagle out of Idaho. If anybody has any problem dealing with water, the first person I would call is Ray and Susan Cagle. They've been phenomenal. So that's kind of our story. It's been quite the trip, but it's well worth it, and it feels good now that we have that right, it's really important. And the thing that I think that we all have in common in this room is we care enough to get involved. And it's a tragedy that I run into so many people that just don't care. And especially down where we live, there's a lot of farmers and ranchers that assume that because the water has been there for 40 years that it's going to be there tomorrow, and that's not the case. We all need to get involved. We need to be very informed. This agency that we've been dealing with, not just the EPA, but the Army Corps of Engineers and some other ones, they're very sneaky.
Right.
They're not the kind of people that come up and shake your hand and say, this is what we got going on. They're the kind of people that in the middle of the night when you trespass on your property, gather a bunch of data to use against you. Or specifically in our neighborhood, they've came onto numerous properties. I think there's 13 different lawsuits now that are pending on trespass. But they gather this data, and then they do nothing but turn it around against you. And if I had to give any advice to anybody that has property, I would say do not allow them on your place. That's where I went wrong. And because they have to have probable cause, and they can't get probable cause unless they're there. So just flat out, do not allow them on your place. You know, I tried to reason with these people. I tried to be decent and work with them, and it just turned around and bit me. Every time that we tried to say, you know, what do you want us to do? They wouldn't answer. They wouldn't call us back. Then they would send a big scary letter, you know, threatening us. And we'd say, okay, well, I guess that was the wrong thing to say. Then what do we do now? You know, and we're just regular people. I mean, you know, I make an honest wage. I work by the hour. My wife stays home. She went to nursing school last year. She's trying to continue that. We're just a regular old American family, and I think that's what's hit home with the media is, you know, if this family's in violation, then who's not? You know, and if they're going to slap this little family in Fort Bridger with the most severe penalty that industry has, then where are they going to stop? You know, it's just ridiculous. It's I'm getting to not like them more all the time. and you know, I'm
putting
not
it nicely.
yeah, and we're not, you know, I mean, we're not anti-regulation. I think there needs to be a realm of responsibility. There needs to be, you know, something in place. But I don't think it falls under our federal government. You know, I think that the people on the ground, the farmers, the ranchers, the private property owners, and the states and the counties are fully capable of managing their own water, their own land, their own issues. You know, the guy that we dealt with out of Region 8 basically sits in an office all day and sends out this paperwork. And it's, I guess to make a long story short, we've learned an awful lot throughout this. You know, I'm very thankful for my wife, you know, for keeping everything together. She's really been there and done a good job with the kids and calmed things down. But we're gonna continue. Hopefully we're gonna get an answer here pretty quick. They have 60 days to respond to our lawsuit. And according to Jonathan Wood, he said hopefully within a year we can have this thing settled up. He thinks it's a very straightforward case. I've had people that have been doing this for 30 years come forward and say this is the closest thing to a slam dunk case that they've ever seen. You know, my attorney out of Cheyenne said, Dan Frank said that what they did was a desktop jurisdictional report where they just sat in the office and they said, well, let's type in Google Earth. Well, it looks like this water goes here and this goes there. Okay, he's in violation. Let's send him. You know, well, come to find out, you know, after we did all the homework and the reports and the pictures and everything to prove, you know, we got our ducks in a row on this. You know, our water goes out and it goes right into a man-made irrigation canal, and then it goes out behind our house and eventually ends up in what they call wall reservoir, which is a man-made evaporation pool.
Oh.
So it's dispersed through, you know, numerous types of irrigation, ditches, center pivots, whatnot, and then it basically dries up. But you know, the new waters of the U.S. basically says it doesn't matter if there's even water there. You know, if water could potentially flow in a rainstorm down and go into this channel and could maybe go into here to end up connecting to the waters of the U.S., it's going to be regulated. So it's pretty scary to think what they have planned, what they have the power to do. I know another gentleman up in northern Idaho that was the neighbor of Mike and Chantel Sackett, that they, where we at time? Okay. Okay, well I got more cases, and I'll answer any questions you guys want, but thank you for having me. We really enjoy Montana, and it's really been good. Thank you.